Material reality of houselessness. Individual choices are not to blame. We can all look back and reflect on a time in our lives where we have made both good and bad choices. It can be really gratifying to assume your good choices have outweighed your bad ones, and that is what led you to your current level of comfort or success. But to think that is to ignore reality. It is to project your lived experiences onto other people and assume they had the same opportunities but squandered them. If you are operating under the assumption that everyone has equal access to opportunity, you are ignoring everything that makes an individual an individual. Their personality, skin color, access to education, access to medical care, the economic class they were born into, and most importantly for this topic, their social safety nets. Since we can all agree to making both good and bad choices, to me the more interesting question is, what are people's social safety nets to help them recover mentally, physically, and financially from making a bad choice? To do this, imagine what it was like at the lowest point in your life. Then reflect on the support system you had during that time. Now imagine not having that support system. This is how people become houseless. They lose everything, including the ability to be reintegrated back into society. In fact, I would argue it is almost impossible for a houseless person to fully reintegrate themselves back into society under our current system. Why don't they just get a job? There is no incentive for any business to ever hire a houseless person. The working class are seen as disposable and easily replaceable. Getting employment is a literal competition where the working class compete, advertising themselves as the most profitable hire. An employer is more likely to hire an unexperienced teenager over a houseless person. But for the sake of argument, let's break down what getting a job really looks like. Let's say this hypothetical person finds public access to a shower to make themselves presentable to their potential employer. They clean themselves up, walk into an establishment, and apply for a job. Depending on the situation, they might not have a resume with prior work experience. But for our example, let's say they do. They successfully apply for the job, but the employer wants to do a call-back interview. Typically, houseless people don't have access to a phone. But again, for our example, let's say this person has access to a family member's phone to complete the second interview. The second interview happens, and against all odds, they get the job. They work for 2 weeks and receive their first paycheck. But if you want to start building wealth, you need a bank account. And to create a bank account, you need a government ID. So, they scrounge up whatever cash they can find and go to the DMV. But to get an ID, you need an address to get it mailed to. For our example, let's say this person can use a family member's address to receive their ID in the mail. They finally get it and open a bank account to deposit their paycheck, all while simultaneously working their new job regularly. They have been working full-time for 3 months while living on the streets, and finally have enough money to rent an apartment. But most apartments require you to make 3 times the amount of rent to prove you are a reliable tenant. And most houseless people live in the city where housing is the most expensive. It is almost impossible for them to build the credibility to potentially rent an apartment. And even if they did, they still have the trauma, addiction, and other baggage that comes from living on the street. This is meant to demonstrate how it is almost impossible for a houseless person to just get a job and reintegrate themselves back into society. Even in this example, this hypothetical person had their family members to rely on as a social safety net. If they didn't have that, they would have had no chance of leaving the streets. Capitalism does not see these people as profitable. But as a society, we must reckon with the fact that some people physically cannot work. Whether it be due to mental or physical reasons, some people cannot work a traditional job. And that is okay. They still deserve a decent life. They should have a home. They have earned a safe place to be able to retreat to, something so many of us will never understand the feeling of not having. It is important for us to understand the material reality of what getting off the streets looks like in this country. And it is important to not look at the world through the lens of broad ideas like equal opportunity. It's a wonderful idea, but it is not reality. It is a framework constructed to make the working class believe they can become part of the capitalist class, and to make the capitalist class feel like they earned their success rather than inherited it. People born into the capitalist class have access to healthcare, education, and have never experienced the threat of their access to capital being attached to an employer who sees them as disposable and replaceable. You cannot compare and say everyone has equal opportunity to wealth and success. That's it for the video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe and share this with anyone who says houseless people just need to get a job.